Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. This is going to be a brand new series from A Man Talks NRL SC, bit of a rebrand to A Man Talks FPL SC because I'll be starting a new video series on Fantasy Premier League, going through my team for the 2021-22 season, going through how my team's tracking throughout the season and some tips and tricks here and there in terms of my captaincy and team selection. FPL is probably my favorite fantasy game in front of NRL Supercoach, to be honest. I love it that much. I'm super addicted to the game. And so to any new viewers, hopefully you guys enjoy the content I'll put out throughout the season. And for any of my current viewers from NRL Supercoach who are potentially looking at getting into FPL, hopefully my videos will help kind of provide some context around the game and hopefully maybe get you into it, because I really do enjoy it and I do encourage anyone who's willing to give it a go to do so. So today's video, we're going through my current Game Week 1 FPL draft. I think if anyone who's into Fantasy Premier League will probably understand, they've probably made hundreds and hundreds of drafts, constantly tinkering with a team. I'm definitely guilty of that. But this is probably the first draft that I've come up with where I'm happy, like if I had to, put this team in for Game Week 1 as of tomorrow, then I would be happy to do so. So hopefully you guys get some tips on, maybe my team selection and my kind of thought process, but let's get into the video. And in terms of how I did last season, I actually did super well. I had an overall rank of 634, my first ever top 1000 finish. I honestly, I can't tell you how I actually did that well. Obviously luck comes into a big part of it, but hopefully we can have that luck carry through for this season, because if I was able to get 2 top 1k finishes on the bounce, that would be fantastic. But obviously I understand that is very, very difficult, but hopefully some of the things that I did from last season I can carry through to this season and hopefully help you guys out as well if you are looking to get really high in your ranks or to win out your mini league. So I'll start off by looking at my defense. So in terms of the goalkeepers, I think Robert Sanchez at 4.5 is probably the most popular goalkeeper that I've currently seen. He's actually been injured in one of the preseason games. We're not actually quite sure how long it is going to be for at the moment. So for the time being, I've actually gone with Daniel Backman from Watford at 4.5 million. The reason I've decided to go for him over a Sanchez is that I really think that Watford's defense is not too bad. Coming up from the championship, they actually had the most clean sheets last season. And one thing I am hopeful for is to get like a Emi Martinez 2.0, basically a goalkeeper who can keep clean sheets but can also rack up the save points, because if they're able to rack up the save points, they will be able to get more of the bonus points as well. So for anyone who's new to the game, for every 3 saves that a goalkeeper makes, they get 1 additional point, which in FPL terms is actually quite a big difference. So I'm hoping that Backman is able to make a lot of saves as they make that step up to the Premier League. So hopefully all the big teams will take a lot of shots. He's able to make a lot of saves. Maybe the clean sheets might not be there, but their fixtures aren't too bad for the first month. Aston Villa, Brighton, Tottenham and Wolves. Brighton and Wolves especially, they don't score too many goals. Aston Villa obviously has got quite a good attack, as has Tottenham, so I would maybe see potentially 1 or 2 clean sheets in that first month, but hopefully a lot of saves, as I've mentioned. So I really like that. And normally with my goalkeepers, I do try to go pretty cheap, maybe spend 8.5 to 9 mil max. So that's a 4.5 or a 5.0 goalkeeper with basically a non-playing 4.0 goalkeeper. In the past, I have tried to do the rotating 4.5 goalkeepers and it's just never worked out for me. I had it last season with Alex McCarthy and Matt Ryan, for example, and I just wasn't able to ever quite land the clean sheet. So I've just decided just to stick with the one 4.5 player, just have him play basically all the games, because it's too hard in my opinion to be picking the clean sheets and rotating. But that's just my personal view. Obviously you can do that a little bit differently if you decide that. But yeah, so that's the main motivation I've gone for Backman, is that I think Watford's defense is not too bad. Hopefully there's potential for save points, and hopefully he can start the season well with a not too bad first 4 fixtures. Now in terms of the defenders, I've tried to go for a mix of guys who've got really good fixtures to begin the season, some attacking potential, but also a pretty solid defense. So Trent Alexander-Arnold probably fits all 3 of those criteria, in that he's super attacking, he's got amazing fixtures to begin the season, which can lead to extra clean sheets as well. I don't really think I need to speak too much about TAA. I mean, everyone knows how good of an attacking defender he is. At 7.5 million, he is the most expensive defender in the game, but that is for a reason. The fixtures for Liverpool are really strong for the first 6 weeks. He created the most big chances, and last season he scored 160 total points in what was probably, people would consider a disappointing season. So if you think that he's going to get back to that, kind of pre-2024 where he's getting like 200 points a season, I definitely think he's more likely to get that than say the 160 from last season. So for me, Trent is, to be honest, is a bit of a no-brainer, and I think he's not going anywhere come my final Game Week 1 team. And I would strongly encourage, if you go for an Alexander-Arnold, you can even potentially pair him up with an Andrew Robertson as well, given that Liverpool's fixtures to begin the season are that good. Norwich, Burnley, Chelsea and Leeds. Chelsea and Leeds are obviously a little bit tougher. Leeds is quite a good attacking team as well. But then they follow that with Crystal Palace and Brentford. So again, those first 6 games for Liverpool are really, really strong. So I really like TAA as a pick. And as I mentioned, he's not going anywhere in my Game Week 1 team. Soufal out of West Ham, I think at 5.0 million could also be very, very good value. I had him for quite long periods last season, and he really worked out well for me because he had good attacking potential. West Ham's defense was pretty good in the first half to the middle of the season. Towards the back end, they did start to concede quite a few more goals, but that's also when Soufal was also able to generate quite a few assists as well. So I really like his attacking potential, and West Ham's beginning of the season is also not too bad in the first month with Newcastle, Leicester, Crystal Palace and Southampton. I can definitely see maybe 1 or 2 clean sheets in there, and I can maybe even see a couple of assists hopefully as well for Soufal. And him and Cresswell, the wing-back system that West Ham use definitely gives a lot of assist potential for the pair of them. If you actually look at it at a per million basis, they actually offered the best value in terms of assists provided last season, based on Soufal being a 5.0 and Cresswell being a 5.5. Yes, Soufal isn't on the same amount of set pieces as a Cresswell, but I think with that 0.5 mil saving, I think I do prefer maybe a Soufal. And so he does also provide that mix of attacking potential, but also that clean sheet potential as well. And my final defender I've got in my starting lineup is Joel Veltman at 4.5 million. Again, this is part of it in that I wanted to cover the Brighton defense if I didn't go for Sanchez at goalkeeper, because Brighton's defense was also quite good last season. They ranked very well in terms of expected goals conceded last season, and their opening games as well is very good from a defensive point of view. With Burnley, Watford, Everton and Brentford in the first month, I think there's definitely potential for clean sheets there. Veltman does potentially have some attacking threat in him, although it's not so much in comparison to say like a TAA and a Soufal. So this would be more of the clean sheet, kind of flavour that I'm going for with a Veltman. Although he was able to get a couple of assists towards the back end of the season as well. There are injuries as well to Tariq Lamptey, so I'm hoping that Veltman is able to nail down a starting wing-back spot or even just like a left-sided centre-back spot. And so I really like him just at that price point of 4.5 as good value into the Brighton defence, which is quite strong. The only concerns I have is that there have been that injuries obviously to Tariq Lamptey, Robert Sanchez, we don't quite know what the extent of that is. Lewis Dunk as well is actually a good option at 5.0. Apparently he's not quite up to full fitness. So Brighton defence to begin the season, it might not be as strong or as full strength as it could be, but at a 4.5 million price point, I don't think there's too much risk going with a Veltman. Now, the midfield of my team is quite strong, and this is where I put most of my money, and to be honest, this is probably the differentiating factor about my team, is that I've gone a little bit heavier in the midfield compared to other drafts that I've seen going around on, say, Twitter and other social media. Salah and Fernandes, to be honest, I don't really have to speak about them too much. I think, two premium midfielders at 12.5 and 12.0. Both of them have great fixtures to begin the season. As I mentioned with Liverpool, the first 6 is really, really strong, and Salah, I can see myself captaining him 4 times in the first 6 weeks. Captaincy in FPL is super important, and so I think planning your team around who you're going to captain for like the next 4 to 6 weeks is a really good strategy. It's something that I did last season that really helped me, and captaincy is able to cover up bad weeks. If all of your players blank, but your captain is able to get a double-digit return, that basically cover up the cracks of what was a poor week, and it's able to get you from a good week to a great week as well. So I think planning your captaincy is really important. For that reason, knowing Liverpool's fixtures are so good for 4 of the first 6 games of the season, Salah is basically also a lock in my team. Bruno Fernandes as well is a really strong option to begin the season. He was the highest scoring player last season in FPL with 244 points, I think it was. And the first games for United are really strong with Leeds, Southampton, Wolves and Newcastle. And so Fernandes for me, I think he's also probably going to be a lock in my team. He's on penalties, and United get a lot of penalties typically every season. Some people are saying maybe should you go without Bruno because you should go for like a Sancho as well for that 2.5 million saving, as well as, if you're not captaining Fernandes, if you're going to be captaining Salah so much, then maybe Bruno is not worth it at 12.0. But for me, I think with the fixtures, he's a proven asset. I think it's a big risk to not go with him. And, if Sancho does prove to start the season very well, it's easier to go from a Bruno Fernandes at 12.0 down to 9.5. In my opinion, they're going from a 9.5 in Sancho up to a 12.0 in Bruno. So for that reason, Fernandes is probably going to be in my team from Game Week 1. Now, Heung-min Son from Tottenham is definitely the big differentiator in my team at 10.0. It is a big question mark over him because the opening fixtures are a bit of a mixed bag. Man City in Game Week 1 is obviously probably the toughest fixture that you can have in terms of an attacking player in the entire Premier League. But the next 3 after that I do quite like as well, with Wolves, Watford and Crystal Palace. The one thing I do like a lot about Son is that in Game Week 3 against Watford, he potentially is the best captain because you can see that Salah is playing Chelsea, Fernandes is playing Wolves, which could be a good captaincy option as well, although Wolves' defense historically is quite strong, although they've also got a new manager, so You probably could go for a Bruno Fernandes if in the first couple of weeks Wolves' defence looks a little bit leaky. But say, for example, if Wolves' defence is looking pretty decent, then I think Son versus Watford could be the best captaincy option. Obviously, as I mentioned before, Watford's defence is pretty decent as well, so that might not quite be the case. But I really do like Son for that reason in my team. He's a proven FPL asset as well at 10.0. I think he could be really good value. And I feel the way I see it as well is like, in the off chance that he gets a goal against Man City, I feel like in game week 2, everyone's going to want to jump on him because they know that Wolves is a good fixture potentially, Watford's a great fixture, Crystal Palace is a great fixture. And so I feel like potentially might be ahead of the curve going with Son. The big question mark is obviously Harry Kane at Tottenham, and all reports are that Harry Kane isn't going to line up in game week 1 regardless of if he stays at Tottenham or if he actually goes to Man City because he's getting an extended break from the Euros. So I like Son for that reason, that he potentially could be on penalties and playing far forward. And so I think, at 10.0, if he's playing advanced role on penalties, I think he could be a great value. The question is as well, without Harry Kane, how good are Tottenham going to be? So definitely Son could be someone I don't go with to begin the season. A bit of a wait and see, maybe on a watch list. And if he looks pretty decent in the first couple of weeks, maybe make a plan to get him in from game week 3 for that really good fixture from Watford. But yeah, as in the first 6, they also do come up against Chelsea and Arsenal. So Tottenham's games are a little bit up and down, but Son is a proven asset, and I think he can score goals against anyone. So I really like him in my team, and he's quite low owned at around 15%. And so I don't quite like chasing differentials for the sake of it, but I think Son, having a proven asset as a differential does seem pretty appealing in my opinion. Rafinha and Emile Smith-Rowe are my two kind of value midfielders. I really like them basically just for that price point, 6.5 million and 5.5. Rafinha posted amazing stats last season. He came to the Premier League a little bit later, and he was killing it basically from the get-go. His creativity stats were amazing for Leeds. Leeds themselves are a very attacking team, and so I'm really liking Rafinha at 6.5. I think I was actually expecting him to come in around 7.5 to begin the season. So for that reason, at 6.5, I think he offers great value. The fixtures are a little bit up and down for the first month, with Manchester United, Everton, Burnley, and Liverpool in the first month, but from game week 4 or 5 onwards, Leeds have great fixtures for the next 5 weeks after that. So I think having at least one Leeds player is probably, in my opinion, the way I'm going to go. And so I really like Rafinha for that reason. At Smith-Rowe, I think if he does get that number 10 role at Arsenal, he could be an amazing value at 5.5. Towards the back end of last season, he was posting a lot better goal threat stats. As the fixtures for Arsenal in the first month are a bit mixed as well, because you've got Brentford and Norwich in there, which are two promoted teams, so definitely good attacking potential there. But then you've got Chelsea and Man City, the two best defenses from last season. So I'd have to make a plan to potentially bench him in those two games. But yeah, Smith-Rowe, I think at 5.5, he as well as Son could be two of those players who I think as more of the wait and see kind if I do decide to not go with them to begin the season. But for now, he's in my draft because I really like that 5.5 million price point, and I think he could be great value moving forward, as I mentioned, if he does get that number 10 role from Arsenal. Now finally, with my forwards, I've gone with two 7.5 million guys in Watkins and Antonio. So Watkins is a very, very popular pick in that 7.5 million bracket, basically because of those first 3 fixtures, Watford, Newcastle and Brentford. Those are 3 amazing games to go with Watkins. He's got good creative players around him. Jack Grealish, if he does stay at Aston Villa, he will have him. He'll have Buendia. So he's got some good attacking players behind him to generate chances for him. And so Watkins, he had posted really, really good XG stats last season as well. Even against tougher opposition, he was always usually able to find goals. He scored a hat-trick against Liverpool last season. So I really like Watkins as a pick to begin the season, just because those first 3 fixtures are really, really solid. Obviously, there is talk now, and pretty advanced talk actually, that Grealish is going to City at the time of recording. But I still think with Buendia behind him would still be decent in terms of picking up goals. And so I really like Watkins to begin the season. Antonio, this guy, I've watched a couple of highlights of West Ham in the preseason, and he's so far forward. He always looks, he's about to get a goal. So I really like Antonio. He posted good XG stats last season as well. Obviously, the big thing with him is that he is very injury prone. So, if you've got Antonio in your team, you kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind that he might be a transfer waiting to happen. But Antonio at 7.5 with good West Ham games to begin the season in Newcastle, Leicester, Crystal Palace and Southampton. I really like him as well in my Game Week 1 team. Now, I've also got my bench here, as I mentioned, a 4.0 goalkeeper who's not going to play in Ben Foster. The good thing about this is that Foster and Bachmann, both from Watford, kind of handcuff each other just in the event that, Bachmann does leave, or gets injured. Then Foster actually might come in and potentially might be a playing 4.0 goalkeeper. There is actually some talk that Bachmann could be potentially moving to Ajax, so we'll see what happens there as well. On my bench, it is a bit of a weak part of the team. I will have to say that, because I've got Luke Ayling at 4.5 because he actually rotates quite well with Veltman in terms of the defensive fixtures. The other two are Obafemi, who's a 4.5 million striker, and Manquillo from Newcastle, who's just a 4.0 non-playing defender. It's a pretty weak bench in that I've only got one playing reserve in terms of Luke Ayling. So that's one thing I am considering about this team. If I do decide to change it up, I probably would look to strengthen my bench just a little bit. Ideally, I would have that second 4.5 player would be someone who's actually playing. Like say in midfield, there's quite a few 4.5 million options like a Brownhill or a Gibbs White or a Gilmore or even a Basuma from Brighton. At least they're all going to be playing and potentially get you 2 points off the bench. So that is one thing that this kind of draft that I've got does weaken a bit, is the bench. But I really like that 7.5 million bracket for the forwards. You know, you've got other good assets like Iheanacho, if he's able to get a starting role. You've got Callum Wilson as well. You know, just a little bit pricier than that is Dominic Calvert-Lewin with at 8.0. So that is something I'm thinking about. I feel like maybe I need to strengthen that third striker spot and maybe move to a 3-4-3, and likely Son would be the one to drop out, and maybe, you know, go down to say like a Buendia from Aston Villa, or maybe even a Jack Harrison from Leeds. That's probably the main thing I would do to this team, because as I mentioned as well, United have pretty good fixtures to begin the season. There's no Luke Shaw. You know, the potential for the Andrew Robertson TAA double up in the Liverpool defence is potentially a way I might want to go. So those are the things I'm thinking about at the moment. But for now, this is the Game Week 1 team. I'm 100% likely that this team is probably going to change from Game Week 1, but this is the way that I've set up at the moment. And just for illustration purposes, Mohamed Salah, captain in Game Week 1, is going to be a lock for me essentially, and Bruno as the vice. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and my thought process around the team and what I might be looking out for as I get closer to my Game Week 1 team. But let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed the video, and if you've got any questions around players, I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. And as I mentioned, if you guys enjoy the video, do please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.